Under the gaze of Nero, Rome burns, as starts Ryse Son of Rome, a game that blends the beauty of Roman history with the spectacle of a Hollywood epic. If you have ever been captivated by the emotional weight and grandeur of Ridley Scott's Gladiator, this game will offer you a very similar and unforgettable interactive experience. What up everybody, welcome to the channel. I'm your host Mike Fury. Subscribe, notification bell, and enjoy my review for Ryse Son of Rome. At its core, Ryse Son of Rome is a visual marvel. From the intricate designs of Marius's armor to the sprawling battlefields of Britannia, Crytek did an amazing job bringing ancient Rome to life in this spectacle of just blood, gore, ancient architecture, and amazing levels of detail. Every scene feels like it's pulled directly from either a movie or a book or highly realized graphic novel. It is amazing, immersing you in the ancient empire and all its glory. The story of Marius Titus is a very similar one to what we know Gladiator to be. If you know the story of Maximus Decimus Meridius, then you kind of know the story of Marius Titus. It's an emotional story based on loyalty, vengeance, and of course, family. A lot of honor being thrown around, a lot of status being thrown around, a lot of the Roman dream and what it looks like and how do we carry it and how do we proceed to grow Rome in its entirety. Almost like if Rome is a character on itself. But this does lack in certain areas when it comes to storytelling, because as Gladiator, if I'm going to use that as the comparison throughout the whole video because it is a Roman epic, it has very strong side characters where in reality Ryse Son of Rome does not. In reality, we just really focus on maybe 2 to 3 characters throughout the whole entire game, which is fine, but it does have really good, powerful voice acting and a surreal, absolutely fantastic musical score. What we all love and what we all came for is actually the combat system. Now, the combat system is this combo-based, well-choreographed, execution-based mechanic that ties into your stats and your abilities and your survivability. It is a wonderful combat system. Can it get fairly repetitive? Absolutely. But we all love this very visceral, this very fast, but at the same time can be a little mechanical combat system, and I absolutely love it. While a few people will have a little bit to kind of like get used to it, you will, especially coming from people who've played, let's say, a Batman or a Shadow of Mordor, this game will get, as soon as you get kind of the rhythm to it and how Titus kind of moves his body and how it's not gonna just swing like Batman across the screen and everything like that. It will do a little bit of that, but he won't do the Geralt of Rivia, which basically dances across every single every single little enemy. It's not gonna be that floaty. This is more boots on ground, very simple. If you will break the combo if you take an extra strike after the enemy has fallen, like that is very purposeful, very well done. But at the same time, it does have some limitations, and it will take you a little bit of time to get used to it, especially if you're coming from games that kind of adapt this same system, from the Batman games to the Shadow of Mordor games and games like, and Assassin's Creed. That's a whole entire other one as well. So even though I cannot deny how fun Ryse of Rome is, I also have to let you guys know that the spectacle and the novelty of it wears off fairly fast, because then it's going to be the same enemy designs, the same animations, the same executions, and that is going to get pretty tiring over long sessions. Granted, the game's only 6 hours long, possibly 6 hours long. If you're real fast about it, you might work it at 6 hours, but you'll get it like around 7 hours of gameplay, more or less. But what compounds that in that limited fashion is also the limited level design. It's very linear. So where we would have these tight corridors or these small pockets of areas where we are fighting enemies and interacting with the story and the architecture of Rome, and these like almost like sprawling areas. Like at one point we're in Britannia and it's this wide forest and it looks great, but I could only go so far. Even in the trap design, like you'll see traps in the game and it's like, it's just every single time we're just doing the same thing. So that's where I wish it would have let us have a little bit more exploration. There are going to be little collectibles and things that you can interact with throughout the world, but nothing is going to replace that exploration, that discovery factor. We don't get that. It's very, very small, very, very tight, very, very limiting. But it's still Rome. It's still awesome. There's still like this grandiose. I've been to Rome in real life. It is fantastic, and the way that they are able to reproduce it in the game is fantastic. But I just wish it had a heightened level of freedom that would have elevated this experience. Where Ryse Son of Rome begins to fall is in its over-reliance of its gimmick. It is the spectacle of destruction against man that is then proceeded to become its plaything and is no longer something that we enjoy. Very simply put. How many times do I get to watch somebody get thrusted in the neck? Pause, but yes, thrusted in the neck. How many times do I see a shield bash? How many times do I see somebody do a headbutt? How many times do I get a knee to the face? Like, and there's plenty of games that do this. Don't keep me wrong. All of them are guilty of this as well. Batman, Shadow of Mordor, Sifu, there's plenty of them. Plenty, Assassin's Creed, plenty of them. But at such a condensed title, you don't get enough variety even in that. And eventually you do. There's an XP system in the game, and you will proceed to get stronger and get more health. And it's good, it's fun, it's dandy. But even when you get the executions, even to the higher levels where you start being able to execute 2 people at the same time, it is not as fruitful, it is not as enjoyable, and it really breaks the immersion and breaks the flow of gameplay as you proceed to do this 4, 5, 6 times in a single fight. And that same monotony goes straight into what is the multiplayer. And the multiplayer mode is a fairly creative concept. It has the Colosseum shifting and changing with different traps and different enemies, but it's limited in its depth. It's like we could only do this a certain amount of times. And the fun part is that it's still up and running. There's still people playing Ryse Son of Rome in multiplayer, which means that conceptually anybody could see that and be like, oh, this has potential. It just didn't have the bones to hold it up. It didn't have the meat and potatoes for us to be like, oh, let's continue to play this. Add a little bit of perks here and there. Like I said, it didn't have a lasting impression. It didn't have a good first impression. It didn't have what it took to keep us from basically taking our attention somewhere else. Ryse Son of Rome delivers an experience that is engaging and stunning. Some of its graphics and some of its vistas rival games of today, but its repetitive level design, its overuse of its gimmick, and the overall repetitive nature of it, from gameplay to objectives to even the collectibles, the overuse of them really hurt its potential, to the point that I wish somebody would grab this same concept and do a Ryse of Rome 2. But again, Ryse Son of Rome currently, as of this year, as of the time of this review, is $10. And when it goes on sale, it's $5. As much as I want to be extremely critical of it, I am not the person that is gonna hold a $5 game to the level of a $60 title, even though it might have came out at that point. Currently, right now, it's $10 MSRP. So as a person who's taking price into consideration, as I always do, Ryse Son of Rome is a 7 out of 10. It is a fun 6-hour experience. It is a good game at this point. Ran beautifully, looks beautiful. Combat is gonna get repetitive, but it's also fairly fun. And if you were ever curious about Ryse Son of Rome, this is your time to buy it. Play it, beat it within a weekend, have a good time, and then say, hey, it's either for you or it's not gonna be for you. If you're a fan of Gladiator, it's gonna be perfect for you. If you're a fan of visceral games like Shadow of Mordor, like an Assassin's Creed, like a Batman and all his takedowns, you're gonna like this game. Is it perfect? No, but you'll definitely like it, and you'll like the price as well. That is it for today. Thank you guys for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, links are down in the description below. You guys already know all the socials down there as well. All dollar day keeps in line a little weight. Check out my Amazon, check out my Patreon. I'm your host, Mike Fury. It's been a complete pleasure. Until next time, Mike off.